Hello and welcome to another video. So today we're going to be taking a look at an Evo Runecraft deck. This does have an aggro presence in its early game, looking at these cards of course, but it's much more of a mid-ish game deck where it really takes precedent. We're getting things like a Ginger and Zeus out, really can make a huge difference. Of course, they're not the be-all and end-all of this deck, as Mellow Princess Witch can be absolutely dominating as a card and can be extremely powerful. So we're going to get right into this and check it out. So, the couple of games we have for this video are going to both be against Blood. That seems to be one of the more common matches I could get with this deck that were consistent and reasonable and not just either an outright blitzkrieg of conceding turn 2 or, of course, losing to the late game. But that tends to be the way things go. So, starting off this early game, we do have our 2-drop into really nothing, which is a little disappointing. I always seem to struggle to get my early game solidified, but if you can, it's usually not too bad. So Robo-Goblin isn't a bad play, especially since now we got a turn 3 play, which should be okay. So dropping 3 play should be fine here, shouldn't really be a big issue, since we can of course go for the Tetra on 4, which will at least open up some possibilities. Otherwise we could even go for Lovely Harmonica, that could be an option as well. Or even better, Mechanized Lifeform into Repair mode would actually clear the board and get us a draw. We do also get this Robo-Goblin, which works out fine, so I did decide to hold on to the life form. I mean, we do have a Mecha Book Sorcerer as well, which could work out nicely for draw, but I probably should have went for the Mechanized Life Form, got it that way, went for the Goblin, cleared out the board, and probably done better overall. This doesn't look too bad though. Vera's not a nightmare to deal with right now. We can actually deal with this entire board pretty consistently and set ourselves up for a pretty nice draw turn. So we do have the Mechanized, the Repair mode, the Tetra still, all of which should do pretty substantial damage. The Evolved Urias won't be a problem to get over with this Tetra, so I'm not too worried about that. And we'll even get an extra point, which we could potentially use to draw more cards if we want to. We've just got quite a few good options now, or even actually go for the Lovely Harmonica might be better, since we do need to get that on the board, so we can take advantage of free Evos going forward. Azazel, a little rough, especially since they do have Vengeance. Shouldn't be a big problem going forward from this. Roaring Thunder, being able to remove the 3/3, setting up a nice damage, and along with going for Mercenary for some extra draw, getting us a nice Jet Broom. Trill Devilish Idol, usually a bit of a problem card, not so much for us right now. It actually balanced out pretty well. And now we have a lot of cards to play, so I want to set up this Monica because my ideal turn for next turn will be Princess Witch. Taking advantage of that and just spamming spells and followers next turn is going to be huge. So this should be very interesting. So there we go, we got the Mechanized Lifeform out first, and then the Princess Witch. Probably should have went for Princess Witch into the Mechanized Lifeform, would have been a better play. We got extra health, which would have been a massive advantage, but small misplays with a new deck, they happen. Either way though, we're going to get some pretty massive body going. And plenty of draw power for this deck. We're actually probably going to overdraw too much, but I'm really not too concerned with that. Since we're going to have a very decently stocked hand. And we got a Zeus, which is actually very important. And since I am, of course, aiming for those good cards now, we do just need to manage to pull off something crazy next turn, and we should be able to potentially win. And while we do lose those, we do get the advantage of giving this thing some even higher attack stats and freeing up at least a card slot to get a new card, so Ginger wasn't a bad pull. So Devilish Idol again. Demon Song and an Evo, so they aren't going to quite clear here, I don't think, but that's fine. They are going to get rid of our massive drop, which is a little disappointing. At least we get a decent chance to go again, force some more Evos, making our Zeus even more potent. But we're definitely pulling the late game now, which Blood doesn't like normally, so this should be fine. Since we are at max health. Enraged Commander. It's not a great way to use those. Definitely got to be low on their priority list. We only need 1 damage, so it really shouldn't be too hard. Hopefully the Zeus goes off without a hitch, and it does with way more than enough damage. Even if it didn't, the odds of getting at least Ward or Storm were pretty high, so one or the other would have been able to close this game for us pretty well. And our next game here is going to be up against Blood. As I mentioned, in both Blood games, because they were some of the more solid games I could have with this deck, I feel like it's got a bit of a learning curve, and I don't know if it's going to be super good overall, as it does feel a little clunky. Maybe with some refinement it could work, but I'm really not sure how to take this deck in the long run. I think sticking around with things like Blood, Haven, potentially even a Shadow, could be much better in the long run for decks, so we'll have to wait and see how the meta kind of shapes up long term. We did start with a reasonably solid though. The Princess Witch early is definitely a good card if you can back it up with a decent turn 2, turn 3 play. Especially against something like Blood. I don't tend to do it against Haven, but against Blood, playing an early one definitely works. Especially in this situation here, where we're actually going to do fairly well. Although I do want to avoid using spells until I can get the Evo on it, which is going to take us a little while since we are going first, and not second. But it should do a nice job of picking off followers in the meantime, so really not a big issue. The only real problem now would be a mass board clear, but there are not many of those that Blood has that they can use on turn 4. So Robo Goblin it is, with a Hellblaze Demon. They went for the Evo, so if it was me, I would have been taking out that Witch. They went for the Robo Goblin though, which seems like the wrong choice. Maybe they just don't know how potent this Witch can be. As if it was me, I would definitely have been focusing on it. And I had to go for the Warring Flame first. I had to take that so I could get the Evo ability. Otherwise, I would have went for it second, but definitely worked out in our favor for sure. 7 damage plus 2 on board. More than enough to put them in a dire situation, so no surprise they did end up conceding. But Princess Witch here is just such a critical card and does such a wonderful job at being a solid early and late game card. It's actually quite amazing how good it can be. Zeus is a great late game support and actually does combo well with Ginger. I was a little worried about how well they would work together, but it tends to work fairly well when you can pull it off. Even though I didn't get to pull it off in this game, it can be pretty insane just on its own. Once you get up to over 5, usually it's quite good. So if you guys did enjoy this video and want to try this deck out, I will leave a link in the description below. It is one of the cheaper new decks, so be sure to check it out if you've got the cards. Till next time guys though, see ya.